We have entered a new world of math called the integers. But what exactly is an integer? Well, our integers start with our positive whole numbers. All that an integer is the opposite of the positive, which is the negative whole numbers. We call those the integers when we put them all together. So every positive number has a negative number that's like a mirror image to it. And literally, if we folded this number line right at the 0 and put 0 right here, and we folded both pieces in, my positive and my negative number would look straight at each other like a mirror image. So that's all that we're talking about. But the integers make life so much more interesting in math. So sometimes they're going to ask us, well, order or compare the integers. The key thing that you have to remember is everything towards the right on the number line, those are our bigger numbers. Everything towards the left on our number line, those are our smaller numbers. So when I look here, negative 11 is much smaller than negative 1. So don't get confused with just the digits, the numeral itself. You got to think about where it is on the number line. So when I go to order my integers, it's easiest to just put them on a number line because those will automatically order them. So if I have negative 9, I can just put a dot right there. 12, a dot. 6, negative 3, 0, and negative 5. And now I clearly can see that the order from smallest to largest would be negative 9, negative 5, negative 3, 0, 6, and 12. Easiest way that you can actually order those integers. So kind of the bigger concept I want to talk about today is this concept of absolute value. Many of you have not heard of this before, but this is one of our grouping symbols that goes along with our parentheses, our brackets, and our division bar. So what it looks like two straight lines, and there's always a number inside the absolute value symbol. The way that you read it is the very first line, you say the distance that, then you go inside the symbol and you say the number, negative 6 is, and then the last line, from 0. All absolute value is talking about is how far away a number is from 0. Now think about this. When you look at rulers or you look at yardsticks, do you ever see negative numbers? No. So absolute value, since it's distance, has to be a positive number. So the distance that negative 6 is from 0 has to be 6. I could do it, the distance that 5 is from 0 has to be 5. Notice always our absolute value has to be a positive number. Well, then how do we work with absolute value in an expression? Well, remember our expressions just means that we have a variable there, and that variable represents a number. Well, in order for me to solve this, they have to tell me what that variable is representing. Remember, it's like a big door and there's an X on it, and our job is to find out what number is hiding behind the door. Well, that number hiding behind the door would be negative 8. So my first step when I'm solving expressions is I just go in and I need to substitute in the value of X. So I'm going to replace X with negative 8. Now notice I didn't solve anything there. Now, second step, absolute value is a grouping symbol, and we know according to order of operations, I have to do my grouping symbols first. So I cover up my 5 and I just say the distance that negative 8 is from 0, remember it has to be positive, it's just 8. Now remember also, I don't have any operation symbol between the 5 and the absolute value. And if there's no operation symbol, I know it has to be multiplication. So I can rewrite this as 5 times 8, which I know is 40. All right, let's get a little bit more complicated. What if I have the opposite of X? And notice I said the opposite instead of negative X because I really want you to think about that concept that negative means opposite. So the opposite of X minus 2, where X is negative 8. Well, the key here is first I have to cover that opposite symbol, and I just need to substitute in my negative 8. Now, what is the opposite of negative 8? Well, if I'm down here and I'm at -8 and I want the opposite, it means it's that mirror image. So what number on the positive side is looking straight at that -8? It's got to be the +8. So I'm going to substitute the opposite of -8 is 8. Now I can solve this. 8 minus 2 is 6. So remember, your variable stands by itself. It doesn't matter if there's an opposite side before it. You can't solve that until you've absolutely substituted in the correct variable amount. So now let's take it to the absolute value. What if I have the distance that the opposite of x is from 0? Well, first I know that x is -7. So remember, I'm going to cover up that opposite, and I'm just going to substitute -7 for x. And now I'm going to rewrite the rest of that. So now I have the opposite of -7, and I have to solve inside those absolute value first because that's my order of operation. So the opposite of -7, so I'm at -7, its mirror image is 7. I replace it with 7. Now I solve my absolute value. The distance that 7 is from 0 is 7. So there's a little bit of a technique to this, but if you always remember to cover up that negative or opposite sign, that helps you get these correct. So have some fun with this. Absolute value is a new concept, but it's important as we move forward. Have fun.